So the next step is to basically recreate this. I mean, this is a block. This was created. You click the selected things you want to create a block, you hit B, you hit enter, and then you'll get the block category, which will show at the end. I'll show at the end of this whole thing. So to create something like this, I mean, you can either use lines or you can just use the draw rectangle tool, and I'm just going to line it up here, right, like that. So we're going to go through and we're going to recreate what's over here, what is already a block. I'm going to show you some of the tools that you'll need to do that along the way. Alright, first step, we're going to explode this, and this is the explode command over here. So this is a block right now. It actually is actively a block. When we go I and enter, which is our insert block screen, this is shown here, RTS Motu, and that's the only one that's locally in our drawing right now. Now if we explode it, it won't delete it from the drawing. It's still there. Another way you can view that is if you click the design center, and it's opened up on my other screen, so I'm going to drag it over, and it looks like this. And if you're under open drawings, you'll see here, now this is called drawing 2 now because I had to close it and open another one, but the point is, your open drawing, it will show all the different things that exist in it basically. And if you click on blocks either here or here, you will see your block database, your local block database. It's basically another way of clicking I, clicking enter, that you'll see the same things in this drop down menu as you will over here. Close that. So in this Explorer view, that's kind of how I describe it. You'll just see a bunch of little tiles going along and along and along, and a scroll wheel will end up over here if you have too many. It's not really as convenient, and if you remember what I showed you about the tool palettes on the side there at the very beginning, it's just not as convenient to bring them in. You have to bring this silly menu over, you have to drag them in, you have to literally drag them in, you can't just click them. It doesn't sync it nicely into the workflow. And the other thing to note that both this design center window and clicking I, clicking enter, the insert block, they're both local. There's no way to make them beyond a local block database. So you can't link these to another drawing. If I open another drawing, anything inside this block drawing, if I open drawing 3 for example, nothing from drawing 2 will be shared between the two. So the only way to do this kind of thing, like I showed you before, is to have one local location, and I have that already set up as you saw over there. But what we're going to do here, we're going to recreate this. So the very first step is to explode this, and that's right here. So now everything, and I've just tapped that, now everything here, you can see there's no longer one pick point. Everything is all its own icon, where there's text, there's a square here, there's little circles, there's smaller text, everything's all a big mess. And it's less convenient because if you have kind of not a messy drawing, but just a cluttered drawing, in the sense that everything's clumped together to get it on a page, it's really annoying to have to move it around with all this text separate. That's why blocks are really helpful. Plus, obviously, blocks can be, like I said, created into a database and then imported into any new drawing, as you've seen me do with this originally. Just to show you though, if I go into the design center, it's still there. The Motu is still there. You can still drag it in, and this is how you do it from the design center. You just drag it in like that. It's still accessible. It hasn't deleted it, and to do that you have to use the purge command, which again we'll go into later once we're into creating blocks and editing blocks. Right now we're just going to go into the actual physical recreation of this. Not so much even block building yet. We're just building icons. We're building representations of what our audio gear is. So the Motu doesn't look like this physically, but we're creating something that can easily be shown and travel along, and our minds will understand. So on this block, which we've exploded, you can see that I've just put the inputs down one side and the outputs down the other. And the reason why we have these little circles here is just so that with circles you can find a center point on them. So it's very easy to get a nice clean spot either by here, or if you're out further, you still can get right in the center of it, and I find it easier than having to put, I guess with a square you'd have to put an X in the middle of it, so you can get the center point of that. So I recommend circles for this, and they're offset by 6 inches each, so that it's uniform. And the reason why I've done that is when you bring something else in, and we can just do that briefly. If you bring something else in, so say just for example, we've brought in this board, and then we want to put an EQ attached to that. The way that these are designed is so they literally snap together, and this one actually has its own cable runs, cable ties already sticking out from that one side there. So anything from the output side is pretty much designed that way. Things from the input are a little bit more customized because I was trying to find a balance between customized ability for you and standardization. Because if you make it too standard, then it won't fit for everyone's rig. So I tried to find a balance. So example, we want to put this in, we just plop it in there, and now there we've saved ourselves a bunch of time. And you can just keep going. Like you have this amp you want to attach, you just go right up to this pick point here and you throw it in. And again, it doesn't get much simpler than that. So that's the idea. You're kind of, by the end result, you're making AutoCAD turning into something of those other programs that are around that do specific sound design. The problem I've found with those is they're a little bit lacking in their customization. You can't really do as much with them, and I find that, I mean, AutoCAD is such a universal program. It's used for pretty much every department in technical theater, so you should probably know it. And once you do learn it, you might as well learn the one program, and then you can do it very well. I mean, AutoCAD does lines well, so that just gives you an idea. So let's just get rid of these, and we're going to continue with this. Alright, so now you know why we have these little pick points, these little circles. So if we want to add those, we just go to the circle command over here, and we drop it in, and then we say what size we want. And these just happen to be 3/8. You can make them any size. Again, it's about customization. If you want them a bit bigger, if you don't find them big enough. I wanted them to be unobtrusive. I didn't want them to get in the way of the drawing. Now I click M and click enter, and that's a move command, and that's another very common command. And just so that it all lines up with this, I'm just going to come over here and get to a zoom that's reasonable. Without changing my zoom, I'm going to drag it and extend it over, and then find the point right there. This will give an example of how to do arrays next, because now we're in kind of a center, not a center point, but we have to array above and below from this point with an offset of 6 inches. And to do that, you use this arrays button up here. You can also type in array, A-R-R-A-Y. So you get this window here. And the idea being is you have rows and you have columns. You row offset and column offset. And those are basically your main, well, for a rectangular array, that's the main options. And for our scenarios, it's pretty simple arraying that we're doing. We're just using it so we save ourselves some time. And I'm showing you both ways. I technically could just do a straight array down by pushing this up higher, but I want to show both ways just so you see the difference. So the idea is you want to look here, and you can play around with this. Like example, they have a pretty good display over here. So if you take the columns down to 1, you have to have a number of 1 integers going up from 1. So if you go 1, then you'll see that it shows it like this. So you've just gotten rid of all these columns across this side. So it's going to create, in this case, here's your center point, and it's going to start creating upward rows. So we only need technically 3, because it includes the first, minus the first one, it'll add 2 more, as you can see here. So this is 1, 2, 3. So that's how it basically counts it. So if you want 15, you just have to think accordingly to it taking into account the first one that's already there. And you can preview it as well. You can click preview, and you'll see that it throws 3 in there. And you just click escape, and it'll get rid of it. So that's a very good function there if you click the preview button. So now, if you see you're on rows, just go down to your row offset and then change that. So we want them to be on 6 inch. It's already saying inches there, so just change the 1 inch to 6 inch and click preview. So now you can see it's arrayed it in a way that's perfectly what we want, and it's lined up. And that's the reason. I think I mentioned that before. It's about it being lined up with the other one, and everything that we throw in will all be nice and lined up as it goes along. So if you create other objects, you want to kind of pick an offset. If you're creating your own database, you could do 8, you could do 10 inches, you could do less, but I don't really recommend that, because in my opinion 6 worked it well for me. I think it was the first thing I started with, and it didn't cause me any problems. You can't make it too small because you don't want it to get too cluttered together, and you don't want to make it too big because then your drawings might just be ridiculous size when you get into these big soundboards that have like 48 inputs in them, and you have to array down. Even having an offset of 6 inches is quite a bit of size, quite a bit of height, if you want to call it that, to your or length to your soundboard block. So now we've created that, and that's good for us. So now we've properly previewed that, and now we want to go back and we want to actually do it, because now we've verified that that works. So let's just click OK, and now it does it. Now that's officially done, and you can undo it by the undo command or whatever, if that's necessary. But it worked perfectly, so that's fine. So now, again, I find that it's not always necessary that you count it, but we can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we need 9 down plus the one that's there, so that's 10. So we want to type in array again, and then we want to do the same thing, we're working with rows, but we're working the opposite way. So how do you do that? You just put a negative value to the row offset, and then it will, when you move away from that field, it will refresh and go down. So now you can see if we preview, now it's pushing down to, because again 3 is the first one's 1, 2, 3. So now that's pretty much how they count them. So we want 10 in total is what I think we counted out. So we preview that, and now we've got our full array of these little pick points all the way down, and all we're doing is we're recreating what we see on the side here. So we click escape to get back to this thing, and we click OK because that's what we wanted. So now we have this full side completed. We have our output side completed, and when we start getting into labeling, we're going to label all the outputs here, and then in the end, once we create a block, again, you'll easily be able to pick these pick points very simply and draw out our cables to connect everything together.